So, the like I said, the hierarchy with the kids and stuff like that. You gotta teach them the boys to be leaders, to be problem solvers, to be helpful, to protect, right? Because they have the physical strength inherently. Obviously, always teach them to get stronger, smarter, better. Be selfless. That's another thing that some people tend to not understand. That the one of the many differences between men and women, right, is by default, men are supposed to be selfish. I mean, selfless, and women are supposed to be selfish, right? Because that's the opposite, right? And it makes the symbiotic relationship work because if the guy is the provider, as in he's the giver, someone has to be the taker, right? So if he gives, you know, money, protection, love, shelter, resources, blah blah blah, right? The list goes on of the stuff that the man does, right? That's selfless actions, right? Because he's doing things for others more than he is doing for himself. There has to be the opposite of that, and the opposite of that will be a woman that's selfish in a good way, not necessarily in a bad way, right? So instead of saying selfless and selfish, let's go with the giver and taker because it just sounds nicer, right? So the man is the giver, the woman is the taker, right? So that's the thing. When you're a giver, you need someone to take, right? You need someone to receive what you're giving. So that's that thing. I know me personally, I've had situations where I try to give somebody something and they won't take it, and I do feel offended about it. Considering the fact that it takes a certain mentality to give, to be like, hey, here's money, just because I feel like doing it. Here's money. It's a useful tool. You might be able to use it. I don't need it, so here. But some people, tend to not be so receptive of that. There's some people who, feel maybe there's an ulterior motive. There's not there. There's factors. I mean, there's reasons, and I understand that it could be reasons, but ultimately, it's just the fact that it's like, since I'm a selfless person, which is not too surprising since I am a guy, that I'm more selfless than selfish. It is definitely better for a guy to be selfless than to be selfish. Considering the fact that we have to work hard to receive whatever we have, work hard for what we got, it makes sense that we are selfless. I've seen some guys who are selfish, right? So that's not a good look. It doesn't look good for a guy to be selfish. I'm not saying be stupid, right? And just like bend over backwards for people and just give, right? And have people take advantage of you, right? Receiving what you're willing to give is one thing, but constantly, taking from you because they think you're a sucker. That's a different story. So don't be used, right? But don't be selfish, right? Don't be stingy. Don't be feeling like you're self-important, right? You're the center of your universe type thing. So be selfless, right? But the best way to be selfless, right, is abundance. The more you have, the more you can give, right? So a measure of success for me, I always say, is I want to always make sure that I have money to save, money to spend, and money to give away, right? Because I'm not a selfish person, and I like to help people. I like to solve problems. And a lot of times, money solves problems, right? If somebody's unhappy, I can make them happy with some money. I've done it many of times, literally buy somebody happiness. And women definitely do derive happiness from receiving things. So buying them stuff does bring them some happiness. Granted, it's temporary, right? The dopamine, all that stuff, and after a while it wears off. But it works. It helps. And if it's connected to a experience, right? If it's connected to like an event, like anniversary, birthday, stuff like that, it becomes more of a memory Instead of just, oh, I feel happy because you gave me something, but it becomes more of a memory, something they kind of can dwell on for many, many years. So they can kind of relive that moment and, get a little bit of a dose of that dopamine from remembering that they received a gift at these specific moments in their lives, which made it more special than you just one day just buying her something randomly. Make sure if you're going to give gifts to your wife and whatnot, that there's some meaning behind it. There's something else attached to it that she'll correlate it to. Don't just like one day on a Monday morning just be like, here, I bought you some roses and I bought you a diamond necklace just because I felt like it. And it's like that'd be a little too random. So then it becomes a little less special. The old saying, the thought that counts, and it was nice you thought about it and you felt like getting her or something. But since there wasn't that much of a justification, right? There wasn't like something where like it would make sense to do this. Like, it's not always a good idea to be spontaneous just for the sake of spontaneous. And then if you overdo it, right, then it just becomes, it becomes something else. Especially you don't want that the way she receives love from you is through materialistic things anyway. You want her love to be from you anyway. You want her to feel that just your presence alone is love, that you talking to her is love, that you paying attention to her is love, that kind of stuff. You talking to her is love. Like you prefer that to be what she equates to love. Not that you have sex with her, not that you buy her things, right? Not that you take her to dinner, fly around the world. Like, you don't want it to be materialistic, right? Because then that makes it conditional, right? And which makes it temporary, which means as long as you can keep flying her around the world, she'll keep loving you. But once you can't, the love is gone, right? That's what makes it conditional. You prefer something like just your existence. So as long as you're alive, well, she loves you. Once you die, she can still love you after, you're gone, right? But, as long as you're still alive, she loves you, right? So you rather, you can kind of still look at it as like, oh, it's still, conditional. It's like, well, it's a good condition. It's a better condition than if it was attached to money, attached to trips, right? Attached to, it's better to be attached, that the love is attached to you, for you, right? She loves you, for you, instead of being attached to your money, to your wealth, your status, popularity. Let's say you're popular on the internet or something, and a lot of people know who you are. She's with you. You don't want her to love you for your popularity, because what if you get cancel culture, right? What if you're not popular no more? What if everybody hates you? And then she's like, can't be with somebody that the world hates, right? You don't want that type of conditional love. You definitely need her at that point in time more than anything, right? You need her by your side. The world hates you. It'll suck if she hates you too, right? All of a sudden. So you definitely don't want that type of connection, right? So you want to make sure that if she loves you, it is because of you. And there's many things that goes with that. Obviously, try to get, when you meet a chick and talk to a chick, right, a woman, right, you definitely don't want to be like, hey, I got lots of money, I got a house, car, blah, 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 blah. Let her find that out, right? Let her figure it out, right? Let her, ask you what you do, what you got, blah, 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 blah. Let it be on her terms as opposed to yours. Don't try to use the fact you got money, house, cars, blah, blah. Don't try to use materialistic things to get her attention, to like you and whatnot, because because then you're making conditional love. You're creating a conditional love situation where all those things are why she's even talking to you, why she's, spending time with you. And if you suddenly don't have those things no more, or this is the most important thing, or there's someone else that has more than you, then she'll look at you, and it's like, well, he has more than you do. He seems better than you in comparison, hypergamy. You might want to avoid that. You want to be unique. That's the thing. You want to be unique, that it's hard to compare you to anybody else, hard to compare you to another guy. So then it'd be harder for her to, for hypergamy to kick in, right? To be like, oh, this guy is better than you, right? So you want to be special to her, special enough that it's like, yeah, there is no other guy on this planet, like you or even better than you in comparison. There are guys different than you, yes, but not per se better, because the idea of better is the same as you but better, right? Extra. So they have the same quality as you. They look similar to you. They act similar to you. There's a lot of similarities, but there's a little bit of extra, right? So that's the thing. You want to find stuff that makes you special enough to stand out. That in comparison to any other guy, there is no comparison. So that's you have that power within you to make yourself into a man that's a cut above the rest, right? You built different, right? I like that term that Gen Z created, the whole "I'm built different." I love that term. So it's like, yes, be built different, right? If you hear female standards is 6 feet, 6 figures, 6-pack, blah blah blah, it's like, all right, well, I'm gonna be different. I'm none of those things. I'm gonna be this instead, and this is gonna be awesome. And females are gonna see this, right? And then they're gonna take into consideration, like, well, even though he's not 6 feet, 6 figures, 6-pack, he's still awesome. Like, he's pretty cool and this, that, and the third, right? So they're like, that's where the exception comes in. Like, you know what? I give him a shot, blah, 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 and go from there. And that's one of the things I try to teach guys in my Modern Man tutorials is, to be the exception. It's not about, being the same as many other guys or, the whole 6 feet, 6-pack. It's like women make exceptions all the time. They could say they want one thing, but they'll settle for another. It's just that the other has to be an exception. It has to be like so unique, maybe something they'd never even considered, and they go for it. That's why sometimes you hear is like, the scenario is like, wait, you don't want a guy who's good looking, rich, and blah blah blah. You got with this guy because he was funny. That's it. That's the only reason you got with him is because he's funny, not because he did anything cool. He didn't cure cancer. He's not tall, handsome, lots of money, whatever. He doesn't have all these, these materialistic things. He just made you laugh, and that was all it took for you to be with him for 20 plus years, hypothetically, right? For this example, it's like, what? So that's the thing. And leadership is definitely, something that goes along with that, right? You want to make sure that while a lot of other guys don't know what they're doing, don't know, how to lead, right? Don't know how to, make sure that when you have a plan, you execute it and you succeed, right? You have to be good at planning, right? You have to be good at problem solving. So the better you are at being a leader, women always follow leaders, regardless of what people might say, right? Men lead, women follow. That has been true for a long, long time. So men who are leaders, like kings and presidents and, generals and, whatnot, warriors, whatever, right? Head of the household, right? CEO of a company, your boss, the boss at a job or whatnot. Everybody sees the leader, sees what the leader is capable of, and they trust the leader's competency, right? The leader's capabilities, the leader's ability to make shit happen, right? Set a goal and make it happen, right? Plan things. Good at planning and executing. Because some females, for example, tend to be pretty good at planning things, but not executing, and vice versa. Sometimes they're good at executing, but they're not good at planning, right? So that tends to be a thing sometimes. But guys, obviously you gotta be good at a lot of things. So being good at planning and executing are two important things, right? Because the planning, one, should make the execution easier, right? The whole work smarter, not harder thing. So you obviously want to make sure that you plan out how you want things to go, right? Make sure you you have the master plan, as I always call it. So have your master plan, how you want everything to work out, but then always have like backup plans, right? So you have the master plan, then you have contingency plans, right? So these are plans that you'll fall back on if the master plan starts falling apart, essentially, like, because no plan is foolproof, right? The proof of that is that it takes a fool to literally ruin a plan. And a lot of times you might be the fool that ruins your, foolproof plan, right? So that's why there's no such thing as a foolproof plan, because literally it takes a fool to ruin a well thought out plan. So make sure you're really good at planning and executing, right? And then of course make sure you have people who can help you execute. That's always important, right? Team, right? You want a squad, a group of friends, network, that kind of stuff. So you want to make sure that you always have people as a resource, right? Money's not the only resource that you can use, right? To do things. Other people, right? And then obviously knowledge, actual tools, like, actual toolbox, right? Full of tools and other equipments and stuff like that, and other resources in the world. So it's just, you got to make sure you have all of these types of things, right? You want to make sure you're in good shape, right? Because there's going to be a lot of times physically you're going to have to do stuff, right? And you want to make sure that you physically can perform and can do things, and that will add up to the can definitely so you definitely want to look into getting as much resources as possible outside of money. Obviously money is a resource, but outside of money, so you can take care of whatever needs to be taken care of. You want to make sure you have the physical capabilities, right? Like I said, you want to take care of your health, be in good shape, so you can physically do stuff, because not every problem can be solved with money. Sometimes you gotta solve it. And the old saying, if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. So that's also something to take into account, right? A lot of times you gotta do things yourself, right? A lot of times you gotta make the decision, in other people's behalf and whatnot. You have to take on the responsibility, right? As well as all the shit that goes with it. That's the thing about being a leader, is that you have to deal with on average the consequences of other people's mistakes, problems, right? The bullshit and whatnot, right? It's not really easy being a leader, because of the fact that if somebody else does something wrong, that falls onto you, because you were responsible for them. You're in charge of them, right? You're responsible for your wife. You're responsible for your kids. Whatever your kids, wife and kids do, that's a reflection on you, right? That's a reflection of your leadership. That's a reflection of your influence and membership and mentorship of them, right? That's why if your wife is just going around into other guys' houses, that's not good. That's not a good look. That's that's a sign of no leadership in that type of situation. Unless you gave her permission and whatnot, and that's how y'all roll, and that's how y'all relationship is, whatever, to each their own, none of my business. But I'm just saying that if you have a pretty straightforward, normal relationship where y'all together because y'all want to be with just each other, then suddenly her being in other guys' houses should be a clear red flag, and it should be an issue. And that, again, like I said, is a reflection of your leadership skill, or I should say lack of. So the idea is to lead people to the best version of themselves, to the better path, to lead them to keep them on the straight and narrow, as it were, right? Keep them going in one specific direction. Because if you have a plan, the plan is to become a millionaire, and then move to Hawaii, and then do other things, right? You have all this planned out all the way up to your retirement, right? All the way, you have your whole life planned out until the day you die, right? And then you find wife, you make kids, blah blah. So you have all that planned out, and you should, right? You have your whole entire life planned out, and of course your wife is, is part of it, and you're bringing her into it, and you gotta explain to her how, what your plan is, and obviously she should be part of helping you execute that, as well as the kids, right? Make sure that everything goes according to plan. And that's the main thing. Is another part of being a leader is making sure that you always constantly remind people. There'll be times where, like, maybe once a month, maybe once a week, you have to remind your wife or wife and kids, right? What the plan is, right? You gotta remind them that, we're gonna be doing this, we're gonna be doing that, like we're gonna be moving, we're gonna do this and that, we're gonna, always gotta keep them motivated and keep them focused on what they're supposed to be doing towards that goal. You don't want to end up one day being like, wait, why is suddenly everybody going their own separate ways? Why no one is following me anymore, right? Why no one's doing their part? That's why a lot of times I hear that issue where, a guy, he's married, things was going good for like maybe 3 months, and then after that, things wasn't going so well. She started being less intimate and more argumentative, and things just started to deteriorate in the relationship. And then he gets all surprised, like, whoa, what's going on? I thought everything was okay. I thought everything was great. I'm doing my part, blah blah. Yeah, you're doing your part, which is good. You should do your part, but at the same time, did you do a weekly check, monthly check, right? Maybe even a yearly check on your wife, right? Your significant other, and to see if she's still on the same page. If she's still in the car, as it were, right? You're driving towards y'all destination, right? Y'all final destination in life. You need to make sure she's still in the passenger seat, right? She's still there with you on this journey of your life, right? You gotta look over. Can't keep looking straight ahead. Can't keep your eyes on the road all the time. Sometimes you gotta glance over to your right, and see if she's there in the passenger side, taking this ride with you, going on this path, this journey with you. Make sure it doesn't end up like, yo, where is she? And you look in your rear view mirror and you see her on the side of the road, waiting for somebody to drive by and pick her up, and then someone does drive by and picks her up, and she ends up in the back seat of some other guy's car, right? If you know what I mean. You don't want that, so that's why you gotta pay attention and make sure you're leading, right? You have to make sure you gotta have control, but not too much control, right? Don't be controlling, like a lot of females out there like to complain about. Don't be too controlling, but you still need to have control and structure, but you need to be able to allow for autonomy, right? Allow for people to be able to self-govern themselves, right? To be able to do things without your direct input, right? People, your wife and kids, right, should know what you expect of them, and even when you're not around, they're like, okay, what would Dad say if he was here? What would my husband say if he was there? What would my husband would do, right? What would Dad do? That kind of stuff. So you want that type of dynamic that even when you're not there, your influence, your leadership is still there. That they still rely on you, even when you're physically not there. They still rely on you and your example of of who you are and what you typically do and how you handle situations. They'll pick up on it, right? It'll translate over to them, and now they're like, okay, Dad would do this in this situation. Dad would do that, and so my husband will do this. My husband will do that, right? Because you always got to remember, your wife is your second command, right? So she has to be able to understand you, right? Understand your instructions, your vision, your goal, your plans, and able to understand, what it takes for the plan to be executed and to be fulfilled. That even if you end up in a situation where you're not there to continue the plan and finish executing the plan, she can pick up the slack, right? She can pick up where you're left off and continue in your behalf. That's the thing. You want to make sure that you have somebody like that. Just like when it comes to raising your children, you're gonna create the structure in which they're going to be raised, the curriculum, right? The set of rules that your son is going to have to live by, and the rules your daughter's going to have to live by, right? And there are going to be different sets of rules for each because of their gender, but there's going to be general rules that they both have to follow. So there's going to be rules they both have to follow, but then you're going to have special rules specifically for your son, special rules specifically for your daughter. You know, that's how I grew up. You know, there were certain things I was allowed to do that my sisters weren't not allowed to do, and vice versa. So there's things the boys can do that the girls couldn't do, and vice versa. There's things the girls, can do that the boys couldn't do, right? Based off the rules that my mom set forth. So she decided what we can and can't do. What's interesting was there was certain perks that I was, mainly because I was a boy, that I was privy to. I was given certain perks and benefits that my sisters were not afforded. I can leave the house and spend, a lot of time in other people's houses. I could spend time at my friend's house and stuff like that, but my sisters couldn't, right? So, if they were going to spend time with their friends had to come over to my mom's house, right? They had to come over to the house and spend time there at home. So my sister can only hang out with her friends at my mom's house, but I could go to their house, to their mom's house, and hang out with them. So that's the difference between me and my sisters. I've always felt that was unfair, but I do understand the large reasoning for it, and it wasn't a bad decision, even if I felt like it was unfair. And that's the thing. It was a little bit unfair. It's like, I don't feel right about having the ability to do something that she wasn't privy to, right? Because I'm definitely a equality type person. I believe that everybody should have equal opportunity, right? Have the ability to be able to do a lot of the same stuff. But over the years, of course, I come to understand that there's reasonings behind inequality, right? There's reasons behind someone getting special treatment versus somebody else, right? I understand why. Like, for example, I understand why a woman gets into a bar for free, but a man doesn't. A man has to pay to get in. I understand why, and I understand the dynamic, right? I understand why the guy buys the woman a drink and she does not buy him one, right? I understand these dynamics. I mean, things have changed, so a woman will gladly take a drink from you, but it will be free of charge, right? She'll take it, and she's not gonna give you anything back in return. And of course, a lot of guys don't like that, and they're justified for not liking it, but that is the situation. And if you're not careful or knowledgeable to avoid that being the outcome, right, a unfavorable outcome, then you won't have that problem. I typically don't have that problem, but there's guys out there that do have that problem. They'll buy a chick a drink, and she takes it and walks away with another guy and goes home with that guy instead. The guy who didn't buy her a drink or didn't, try to get to know her. But what he did get to do was hit that, right? He got to smash. So there's that. Responsibilities, is very important to establish, how much responsibility you're going to have, how much responsibility your wife is going to have. Same goes for your children. And, typically you as the husband will have more responsibilities, and your son or your male offsprings will have more responsibilities than the female ones of the family. So the males of the family will have more responsibilities and duties than the female side, right? Just like the male side will have to deal with a lot of the harder, harsher, problems, while the females will handle the simpler, easier problems. So that tends to be a common thread. Like me and my brothers always got to carry the big heavy stuff, while my sisters, always carry the smaller, lighter stuff. So while we're moving, me and the boys are moving like furnitures and refrigerators and shit like that. My sisters are moving bags and boxes of clothes and other items. So the light stuff, right? While we boys are bringing carrying all the groceries into the house and whatnot. The girls, obviously are taking the groceries out the bags, sorting them out, and cooking and stuff like that. So everybody's role is important, right? Everybody's usefulness is important, right? You have to understand everybody's skill set. That's part of being a leader, is knowing everybody's strengths and weaknesses, making sure that everybody maximizes and uses their strengths, right, and make up for their weaknesses. But definitely, whatever strengths you have, those need to translate. Those need to go over into, into the relationship. So there's got to be a level of symbioticness, right? There'll be situations where if the boys get sick, then the females of the family, has to nurture the boys back to health. Help the boys, get their strength back usually through food, right? Cleaning, laundry, that kind of stuff. Cleaning the house, cleaning whatever area that you're probably going to be spending a lot of time in, trying to heal from your sickness. Obviously, sicknesses get drastically reduced if if you have a clean house and you're eating healthy. So, the women of the family making sure that the house is clean and there's food that's properly cooked, so that way no one gets sick and everybody's being healthy and whatnot, are important roles and important things that they definitely need to make sure they're capable of doing. I agree with and believe in the whole cross training, that guys should know how to do female duties and whatnot, just like women should learn how to do the male duties, right? Or the gender roles, right? Both genders should learn the skills from the other gender. But of course, you're going to be the master of your own skills per your gender, but you should be at least a expert, not a novice, but like an expert on the other gender's skill set. So whatever stuff your wife is really good at, you should at least be okay at it. You should be decent. You should be halfway decent. Because if she's not around to handle and to do and do what she normally is highly skilled to do, let's say she's really good at taxes. If she's not around to do the taxes, and that's what she's really good at, you have to at least be decent enough to file taxes. You have to be good enough that you could file, your taxes. That's an example. So that's the thing. Based off of your gender, you're going to be really, really good at certain specific things. But doesn't mean that your significant other couldn't do it, couldn't do the things you do. It just, there's a high probability they can't do it the way you can do it. You're probably really good at what you do. Like, for example, more often than not, short women tend to be with taller men. So clearly, short women can't reach things that well. So that's where the tall husband comes in, because he can reach it. So you see the importance of how different we are, but also how useful we are to each other. Because the funny thing is, I always consider the idea of, like, I would like to check my height, but there is usefulness for a chick that's smaller than me. And I always think of like an escape room or a not Final Destination. What is it? Is it called Final Destination? Something similar to that type of situation. No, I'm thinking of the Saw series. Saw series type of situation where it's like, okay, we're trapped somewhere, and the only way to get out and unlock the door so we can escape is through this small vent, and the vent's small. I'm a big guy, I can't fit through the vent. Plus, I'm a little claustrophobic, but that's for a different conversation. But the thing is like, it's a small vent. I can't fit through it. If I could, I'd be able to escape, but I can't. But if I have a short, wife, and she's not as claustrophobic or not at all, then it's like, all right, perfect. You're the perfect size for this situation. So that's why, one of the funny things I always thought about, like, like, do I really want? I could get a woman my size, but do I really want a woman my size? Or would a woman smaller than me be a more logical choice because of the possibilities of a situation like that? Another possibility is, um, you know, why, what I was going to say, her being short has some ability. Other, so being short has its perks. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like there's perks for her being short, and just like there's perks of you being tall, just like perks of you being strong. Her understanding emotions and being empathetic and all those other factors, all those other things that she's relatively good at, can obviously benefit you. And since you know her particular set of skills, you as a leader, you'll know how to delegate responsibilities to her. Like, oh, you're really good at taxes, so here's all the taxes. I'll give you everything you need to do taxes, because you're an expert. You're a subject matter expert, right? That kind of situation. So make sure you know what your woman, right, your wife is good at, and take advantage of the fact that she's really good at it. And obviously she's taking advantage of what makes you so awesome, right? Your particular set of skills, like being tall and whatnot, being strong, being able to defend yourself, herself, those go hand in hand. So you want to make sure that you take care of that and have that set up. So we talked about finance. We talked about health, responsibilities, the hierarchy of of how the leadership works, you know. But plan for the worst, hope for the best is the most common thing that I say, because of the fact that like you um, because at some point you're gonna die. You don't know if it's next week or the week after that. So at some point you're gonna die. You want to make sure that you have everything planned out, way advanced. The sooner you can get to a position, in life, the better. So I always plan for the worst, hope for the best. Because if you're already ready for something to fail, then failure is not as common as it used to be, because you already planned for it. So it's not a surprise at all. So let's see what else. One last thing before I go. Not much to say left. I think I did talk about health, right? Making sure that the health of the family is taken care of. Your own personal health, right? You want to live as long as possible, so you can obviously take care of take care of your family. That's another. You'll be older than typically. You'll be older than your wife, so the possibility of you, dying out before her, is more likely. So you definitely want to make sure you prepare for that. Make sure that she is taken care of, and she's good. After the fact of you not being around, that kind of stuff. Or if it ends up, divorce ends up being a factor, that's the whole plan for the worst, right? If divorce happens, being prepared, making sure that it's financially not that big of a deal, that it doesn't screw you over. You don't want to be screwed over. by the court systems, right? So you want to plan things out, make sure that divorce plays out the way you prefer it. Ideally, you don't want to get divorced, but like I said, plan for the worst, which could be divorce, death, um, and many other factors. I mean, even plan for infidelity. If that happens, whether it be your infidelity or her infidelity, obviously you should try to avoid any interactions that would lead you down the dark path, right? You don't want to make any bad decisions will cause you to be broke, to be to be injured, right? Be unhealthy. You don't want to make any decisions that other people would definitely take, which would leave you hanging, right? That'd be the end of the podcast.